Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My story goes back to 12 years ago, when my wife Linda and I, Tristan, decided to part ways after 2 decades of marriage. 20 years. You'd think that kind of time would cement something permanent, something unbreakable. But instead, it just made the cracks more visible. The weight of our differences had grown heavier than the reasons to stay together. The quiet moments became distant. Conversations turned transactional. The laughter had long faded, replaced with a kind of uneasy silence. We agreed it was time. Not with bitterness, but with exhaustion. Our daughter, Aubrey, was 15 at the time, old enough to understand the words we were saying, but far too young to truly grasp the intricate, invisible threads that unravel between two adults. Linda and I sat her down in the living room. I remember it vividly. She curled up in the corner of the couch, arms folded tight across her chest, as though she could somehow hold herself together if she just squeezed hard enough. Aubrey, I began carefully, your mom and I, we've decided to separate. She blinked. Her face drained of color. What? It's not because of you, Linda added quickly. Please know that, sweetheart. This isn't your fault. Her lips parted slightly. Then her voice cracked. What? Why? Why now? Why are you doing this? We've tried for a long time, I said gently. We really did. But we just can't make it work anymore. But we're a family, she cried. How can you do this to me? How could you break our family? Her words sliced through me. Linda looked away. Aubrey's eyes brimmed with tears, and then the dam broke. She sobbed, her whole body shaking with it. My heart felt like it was splintering. I reached out to hold her, to comfort her, but she recoiled. No, don't, she shouted. It's all your fault. I froze. Aubrey, what? Why would you say that? She stood up suddenly, fists clenched at her sides. I hate you for doing this. Aubrey, please, I said, stunned and trying to remain calm. What did I do? But she wasn't listening. She turned and ran to her room, slamming the door behind her. The echo of that slam rang in my ears longer than it should have. I sat there in silence for a moment, blinking at the closed door. Then I turned to Linda. What was that about? I asked. Why did she blame me? Linda just shrugged. I have no clue. I wanted to press, to question that reaction, but that wasn't the right time. Our daughter was hurting. That was all that mattered. After the divorce, things went downhill faster than I could have predicted. Linda got a new job in another city and decided to move. I thought maybe Aubrey would stay with me. After all, I worked remotely. I had time for her. I was there. But she chose to live with her. We had joint custody, but that didn't mean much in practice. Aubrey rarely visited me. At first, I called, emailed, even texted just to get some time with her. She would agree, reluctantly, to a brunch or dinner. But when she came, she barely spoke. She'd sit across from me in some cafe or restaurant, pushing food around her plate in silence. The warmth that used to live in her eyes when she looked at me, it was gone. In its place was something cold, distant, like she was fulfilling some obligation. Still, I kept trying. Every time we met, I brought a small gift, books she might like, art supplies, once even a bracelet I thought she'd find cute. She would open them, barely look, then mutter a quick, flat, thanks. That was it. No smile. No hug. Just thanks. I started to feel like she was doing me a favor by even accepting them. So one evening, I didn't bring anything. I thought maybe I'd been misreading things. Maybe the gifts annoyed her. Maybe she saw them as cheap bribes, not gestures of love. That night, we met at a small Italian place. I waved when she walked in. Hey, kiddo, I said, trying to keep the usual cheer in my voice. She glanced at my hands. Empty. Seriously, she snapped, loud enough for the people at the next table to glance over. You showed up with empty hands. I blinked. I didn't think you wanted. Forget it, she muttered, grabbing her bag and turning on her heel. Aubrey, wait. She was gone. Just like that. No dinner, no conversation, just anger and a slammed door. Again, I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at the untouched bread basket. My stomach was tight, my heart tighter. Our once close relationship had turned into something strained and unrecognizable. Every attempt I made to reach her seemed to push her further away. I tried jokes, honesty, even silence. Nothing worked. So I stopped. I called it quits, not out of anger, but self-preservation. I told myself, I won't contact her first anymore. I'd done enough chasing. If she wanted to talk, she'd reach out. But she didn't. A year passed. Then another. I softened again. I couldn't help it. I sent birthday cards, Christmas cards. Sometimes with small notes, sometimes with just a line, thinking of you. Love, Dad. No reply. I chalked it up to teenage rebellion, to her needing space, needing time to understand. I convinced myself that when she became an adult, she'd gain some perspective, that she'd come back, that she'd remember. But the months turned into years. She finished high school, then college. I knew only because I paid for it. I wasn't invited to her high school graduation. That stung. God, that stung. And the worst part? She blocked me on social media. I had no way of knowing what was going on in her life. No photos. No updates. No milestones. Just silence. Friends told me to try harder. She's your daughter, they said. Don't give up. But each attempt was like shouting into a canyon. Echoes, and nothing more. It hurt. More than I can put into words. The girl who once ran to me with every scraped knee, who giggled at my terrible dad jokes, who used to look up at me with those wide, trusting eyes, she was gone. She had cut me out of her life completely. Divorce was hard, but losing my daughter was the worst. For the first 2 or 3 years after the divorce, I wasted myself completely. I drowned in alcohol and self-pity. Mornings blurred into nights, and nights into emptiness. My house felt like a tomb, echoing with memories of laughter that no longer lived there. I drank because it dulled the ache. I drank because facing the silence was worse. I was on the verge of a liver ailment when my doctor sat me down, looked me in the eyes, and said, "If you don't stop drinking, Tristan, you're not going to live much longer." That should have scared me. But honestly, there was a time I didn't care. What was the point of living, anyway? Still, somewhere inside me, something resisted. Maybe it was the faint hope that Aubrey might come back. Maybe it was just raw instinct. I don't know. But I stopped. I quit drinking. I clawed my way out of that pit, one day at a time. I started going to the gym. I cleaned out the fridge and learned how to cook for one. I booked cheap, budget trips to quiet places where no one asked questions. The following decade became a blur, an endless cycle of work and solitude. I threw myself into my job, trying to patch up the hole in my chest with emails and deadlines. Then, a week ago, everything shifted. I was at home, half watching a documentary with a plate of leftover pasta, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But I did. Dad. The voice was shaky, unsure, young, but matured, familiar and foreign all at once. My heart stopped. "Aubrey?" I asked, barely breathing. "Yes," she said. There was a long pause. I had 1,000 things to say, questions, apologies, memories. But my tongue was heavy. I didn't want to say the wrong thing and lose her all over again. She spoke first. "I'm coming to see you. Will you be available next Sunday?" I was dumbfounded. My hand gripped the phone tighter. She asked again, "Are you there?" I cleared my throat, my voice trembling. "Yes, I'll be here." "Okay, cool," she said. And then she hung up. I sat there, holding the phone long after the call ended. My eyes stung. Tears rolled down my face before I could stop them. I pressed my hand to my mouth and forced myself not to sob. I've followed this sub for a long time. I've read stories, so many stories, of fathers like me. And I've seen how often children only show up when they need money, when they're in a fix, when it's convenient. I hate that those thoughts even crossed my mind. But they did. I waited for her call for years. And now, when she finally calls, I'm suspicious. I don't want to be. I want to just feel joy, relief. But something in me has changed. Hardened. I'm in two minds. Part of me wants to run to her, hold her like I did when she was 5 and scared of thunderstorms. The other part is resentful, bitter, tired. Still, when Sunday came, I waited. I heard her car pull up. I stood at the window like a fool, heart pounding. And then I saw her. Aubrey had grown into a beautiful woman, tall, poised, confident. Her presence was composed, assured. But there was something else too. A tension in her shoulders, a guarded look in her eyes. A look that broke my heart. She stepped into the house and paused just past the threshold. Her eyes darted around the familiar space, the corners of her lips twitching into a half smile. "Oh my God," she whispered. I can't believe I'm coming to this house again." She took a few hesitant steps inside. "I have so many golden memories here," she said, her voice softer now, like she was talking more to herself than to me. I stood a few feet behind her, watching her take it all in. She moved slowly, her fingertips brushing the edge of the staircase banister, the hallway wall, the worn corner of the sofa, like she was reconnecting with ghosts. "Dad," she said, her voice a bit brighter. "Do you remember how we used to play paintball in the backyard? And I'd always hide behind the garden shed and you'd pretend you couldn't see me?" I nodded, eyes stinging. "I remember," I said hoarsely. She chuckled, walking into the kitchen. "And here, right here, you used to make those awful pancakes on Saturdays. They were always burnt on the outside and raw in the middle." I smiled through tears. "You still ate them? Because you put gummy bears in them and told me it was a secret chef's touch." I laughed then, wiping my face. "You believed me for years." She looked over her shoulder, grinning. "I still kind of do." The wave of memories hit hard. Every corner of the house held a part of her childhood. A scrape on the wall from a scooter ride gone wrong. Stickers still faded on her old bedroom door. It was all there, frozen in time. That's what made it so hard to heal. Every year she was gone, this place reminded me she wasn't here. I sat down on the couch, the same spot I'd collapsed into so many times with an aching heart. Tears welled up again as I watched her walk around, piecing together her past. Then, suddenly, she turned and walked toward me. Without saying a word, she sat down beside me and wrapped her arms around me. I broke. Completely. The sobs came up from somewhere deep and buried. I cried like I hadn't in years. Not since the day she left. We sat like that in the living room. The very room where Linda and I had broken the news to her all those years ago. It felt surreal, like time folded in on itself. After a while, I wiped my face and tried to gather myself. My voice was still unsteady when I finally asked, "So, what brought you to my door, Aubrey?" I tried to sound casual, but my heart was pounding like a drum. She took a deep breath, sat back a little, and looked at me. "Well," she began slowly, "now that you're aging, I was wondering if you had made the will." I blinked. "The will?" "Yeah," she said, brushing a hair behind her ear. "I've been waiting for you to contact me regarding the inheritance money. Since you didn't, I thought maybe I'll remind you." Just like that. Her tone was calm, even matter of fact. She had made her intention clear. It was about money, after all. But in that sudden, fragile moment, I quite couldn't grasp the situation. I stared at her, stunned, unsure if I'd heard her right. "So, you're here to remind me? And what exactly is this talk about inheritance and a will?" I asked, blinking in disbelief. "You do realize that wills are relevant after someone dies, right? And well, I'm still very much alive." She gave me a look, half amused, half condescending, and said, "Yes, Dad, I have that sense. I'm not 15 anymore." Then, with a casual shrug, she added, "I came here to save you the hassle of making a will. I mean, what's the point, right? I'm your sole heir. Everything is naturally mine. So it's better if you make the transfer now, so I can actually benefit from it instead of inheriting it in my middle age." I felt something inside me tighten. She was smiling, chuckling even. "I'm getting married next year," she continued. "What better use of your money than spending it on your daughter's wedding?" Then she giggled and added, "Besides, you don't look that old. I think you might live for another 20 years or so. I can't wait that long." Her laugh echoed in the room, but all I heard was the hollow ring of disappointment. I couldn't believe it. Was this why she came? After all these years? I swallowed hard, my voice catching. "Really, Aubrey? Is that what you've been thinking about all this time? My death? Is it really just about the money?" Her eyes narrowed, and her face hardened. "What else would I come for?" she snapped. "You abandoned me, remember?" I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. "I didn't abandon you, Aubrey," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "You shut me out. I reached out, again and again. You snapped at me every time I tried to bond with you. Despite that, I kept trying. I sent cards, I called, I waited, but you ghosted me." To my shock, she shot back, "Well, maybe you should have tried harder." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That was it. The dam broke. All the pain, the silence, the unanswered messages, the aching years. I felt it all rise like a tide, and I saw it in her too. Her face flushed with anger, her eyes wet and fiery. The conversation turned into a full-blown argument. Years of bottled-up emotions spilled out between us. She accused me of not fighting for her, of not being there when she needed me most. "You ripped our family apart," she said, voice trembling. "It was your responsibility to hold it together." I looked at her, stunned by the weight of her words, and tried again, calmly, firmly. "Aubrey, it takes two people to run a relationship," I said. "Your mother wanted out of the marriage too. She chose to leave. So how am I the only one responsible for the divorce?" She folded her arms and stared at me like I'd just said something absurd. I kept going, my voice thick but steady. No matter how much I tried to make it work, it wasn't enough. Not for her. She wanted a different life. And I accepted that, because staying in a dead marriage would have done more damage to all of us. "But you only ever blamed me." She didn't blink. "Because it was your responsibility. You were the man. You should have held the family together." Her words landed like concrete. I stared at her, speechless for a second. It was like talking to a brick wall. No matter what I said, she had her version of the story carved in stone. Something in me cracked. "Her families break, Aubrey." I snapped, my voice rising despite my best efforts to stay composed. "People make mistakes. Things fall apart. But I never stopped loving you. I never stopped trying to be your father." I couldn't hold back anymore. The tears poured out. My chest ached as I broke down in front of her. Maybe for the first time in years, I let the dam burst. There was a long, loaded silence between us. Then, quietly, she said. Do you remember? 12 years ago. I cried helplessly like this. I begged you and Mom not to divorce. But you didn't listen to me. Her voice trembled now. Do you have any idea how much I suffered mentally because of that divorce? I was 15, and my whole world fell apart. But no, you didn't care. Neither of you cared. I wanted to tell her that we did care. That we were heartbroken too. That we had cried behind closed doors. But I couldn't find the words. So why should I care about you now? She said flatly. I won't beat around the bush, Dad. Yes, I'm here for the inheritance, which is rightfully mine. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. There was no sugarcoating, no false pretense. Just cold, sharp honesty. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I sat there, hollow, staring into nothing. I don't even know when she stood up to leave. Only when I heard the door slam behind her did I realize she was gone. I sat there for hours. Lifeless. Empty. Numb. The house felt like a void. Her voice still echoed in the walls, but she wasn't there anymore. It's been 2 days since that happened, and I still feel drained. I can't eat. Can't think straight. My body's heavy. My mind's a mess. Is it normal to feel this way? I'm not sure. I know divorce is rough on a child. God, I've read enough, talked to enough people to understand that. But I don't think I'm solely responsible for what happened. I was reluctant to meet Aubrey, not because I didn't want to see her, but because I was scared she'd scratch open wounds I had spent years trying to heal. And she did. She pushed me right back into the past. She gaslighted the situation so efficiently that for a moment, just a moment, I actually started to believe it was my fault. That maybe I really didn't try hard enough. Thankfully, this community has helped me clear my head. Some of you have asked if she might have been influenced by Linda. And you're right to ask that. The truth is, Aubrey blamed me because she believed that as a man, I should have done more. Should have held it together. And Linda, well, she was a stay-at-home mom. Naturally, Aubrey was closer to her. She lived with her right after the divorce, all the way through until she moved out for college. And yes, I paid child support for her until she turned 18. I covered her college tuition as well. Yet despite everything I did for her, despite paying for her education, supporting her through her childhood, she was cruel to me. Cold. My friends reminded me, not all parents pay for their kids' college, Tristan. But I still did. I never even hesitated. What else could I have done? I know money can't erase the emotional scars a child carries from their parents' divorce. I know that. But it wasn't solely my fault. I tried. Coming to the update. Aubrey seemed to think she was the rightful heir to everything I owned. Maybe I wasn't clear enough with her during our last conversation. Maybe I got swayed by the emotions, the tears, the rush of seeing her again. But this time, I was different. This time, I was ready. She called me the other day. I didn't want to answer. I stared at the screen while the phone buzzed in my hand, debating whether to send it to voicemail. But it kept ringing. So I picked up. Let's see what she's got now, I thought. Hi, Dad, she said. Her tone was softer. Too soft. I didn't say anything. She continued. I wanted to say I'm sorry. About how things went the other day. I let out a breath. Uh-huh. And, she added quickly, amidst our emotional reunion, I forgot to tell you the most important reason I reached out. I didn't react. Just waited. You did mention money, I said flatly. She laughed. A forced, light kind of laugh. No, Dad. I mean, yes, that came up. But, what I meant was, I'm getting married next year. There was a pause. I could tell she was waiting for a reaction, but I didn't give her one. Aren't you happy? She asked. Your little princess is getting married. I clenched my jaw. Yes, you already said that. You also mentioned using my money to fund the wedding, if I recall. She went quiet for a second, then ignored the comment entirely. Well, she said, if you're up for working on our daddy-daughter relationship, I may invite you to the wedding. And if things go well, maybe I'll even let you walk me down the aisle. Pretty exciting stuff, huh? That stung. Not because of the words, but the way she said them. Casual, calculating. Like it was a reward I had to earn. A privilege I had to pay for. I was holding up strong, trying not to let her play in my heart like she had last time. But damn it, when she said, I might invite you, it cracked something in me. I felt tears pushing at the corners of my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. She didn't even try to hide it. The message was loud and clear. Play nice, pay up, and you get to be part of my life again. I stayed silent. Then, just before hanging up, she said, anyway, my wedding's on May 12th. Thought you should know. I barely heard the rest. My head was spinning. Her voice faded, and then the line went dead. I sat there, lost in my thoughts. Dazed. I knew she wasn't done. I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't her final move. So I made mine. I contacted a lawyer. Told him I wanted to draft a will. Up until that point, I didn't have one. Never thought I needed it. But now it felt urgent. I own this house. I had built a decent business from the ground up. And over the years, I'd made some smart investments. Picked up a few good properties on the outskirts. She called me again a few weeks later. I recognized the number immediately, but this time, oh boy, I was ready. She didn't even say hello properly. Just jumped straight to it. So, have you done the necessity? She asked. Do you see the level of narcissism in that? Like she was checking a box off her list. Like I was her secretary. Yes, I said calmly. It's in the process. She clicked her tongue. Then how come I haven't been notified by your lawyer that your assets were transferred to me? I let a brief pause hang before answering. As I said, it's still in the process. Why don't you come over next weekend and see the documents for yourself? There was a shift in her tone immediately. She got excited, suddenly all sweet and syrupy. Ah, Dad, I love you. That sounds great. I'll bring my fiancé too. I want you to meet him. Throwing bones at me like I was a damn dog. So, yesterday she showed up, dressed nice, walking in with the kind of confidence that said, I own this place. She lounged on the couch, made herself comfortable, and looked around with fake nostalgia. This house still gives me the same comfort it did in my childhood, she said, stretching out like royalty. I smiled, stood up, and handed her the will. She looked at the envelope and asked, Is this the transfer paper? Why don't you open it and read? I said, keeping my tone neutral. She was over the moon. Giddy. She ripped the envelope open and began reading aloud, like it was some grand prize she'd just won. But then she got to the part where it said my estate would go to charity. Her voice halted. Her smile faded. And then came the explosion. What the hell? You're giving all your money to beggars. I shrugged. Perhaps, yes. She stared at me, wide-eyed. By the way, I added casually. Thanks for nudging me about the inheritance. You were right. I didn't have a will before. If I'd died without one, everything would have gone to a beggar. Then I leaned in, just enough to let the sarcasm land. I meant you, in case you didn't get that. She lost it. You're mean, she snapped. You're toxic. No wonder Mom resented you and wanted to live apart. She was pacing now, hurling words like knives. This is exactly why I had a traumatic childhood, she cried. Because you didn't try hard enough to make the marriage work. And just like that, she fired up the same old recorder again. Pressed play on that tired script. Guilt-tripping me. Telling me I owed her the inheritance because she had to suffer, because of me. I sat there, listening to Aubrey's rant. Every guilt-drenched word of it. And when she finally paused to catch her breath, I calmly said, You know what? That charity also caters to the destitute. Why don't you go ahead and register yourself as one? Oh, I was on fire that day. She muttered a curse under her breath. I wouldn't have been surprised if she said it out loud. She'd shown me before that she wasn't exactly burdened with grace or values. And honestly, I can't blame Linda entirely. I was part of Aubrey's upbringing until she was 15. But still, she used to be a completely different girl. The daughter I raised wasn't entitled or cruel. The girl I saw now didn't feel like my daughter at all. She sounded more like my ex-wife. The tone, the smugness, the way she weaponized her pain like it gave her some kind of moral high ground. It all felt rehearsed. Like she was mimicking someone. She threw her weight around like I owed her something. Like I was some puppet on her string. But I'm done being a puppet. I never remarried. Well, after my divorce, I just didn't have it in me to try again seriously. I had a few casual relationships here and there, but I wasn't ready for a long-term commitment. I told myself I'd moved on, from Linda, from the pain, from Aubrey's absence. But if I'm being honest, I hadn't. Not really. Aubrey showing up in my life again, as twisted as it was, it did me more good than harm. First, the will. If she hadn't pulled this stunt, I never would have thought to write one. Everything would have defaulted to her. That's not what I want anymore. Second, I got closure. Real, sobering closure. I finally see the situation for what it is. I feel lighter now, like I've put down a burden I didn't even realize I was still carrying. And I know some people won't like hearing this, but sometimes, family does more harm than good. Then came the call from Linda. She sounded calm, as always, but her words were sharp. She was advocating for Aubrey, insisting I'd been too harsh. She was just a little girl when we separated, she said. It's taken a toll on her mental health. I stayed quiet for a moment before replying. I agree. Anyone living with you will have mental health issues. Besides, you had her custody. She was living with you. Why didn't you help her get the mental health support she needed? Silence. Then she said, I just think you need to forgive her. Reconcile. She's your only child. I almost laughed. Oh, I am not holding any grudges. And you are right. She was my only child for 27 years. But why didn't you knock that sense into her? That she needed to reconcile with her father? But no. You supported her when she cut me off. I paused. The words sat heavy in my chest before I spoke them. Maybe you're the one who manipulated her into hating me. Who knows? She gasped. I never badmouthed you in front of her, she said firmly. Aubrey formed her own opinion. She believed you were the reason for the divorce. I shook my head slowly, even though she couldn't see it. And you didn't correct her? Did you? You fed on her vulnerability. You let her hate me because it made you feel better. Admit it, you enjoyed it. There was a beat of silence. Then she snapped. You're talking crap. Her voice was clearly laced with anger now. No, I am talking to a person full of crap. I responded. But to her credit, she held on to her composure and tried to manipulate me. It was painfully clear now. This whole thing had always been about the inheritance. Linda's call just confirmed it. She tried to guilt-trip me, scolding me like some reckless old man. How could you give away all your hard-earned money to charity? She asked, incredulous. I didn't flinch. 'Cause it's all mine and it will be better if used for charity, I said coldly, than funding a toxic bitch. Her silence told me everything. The more I listened, the more it dawned on me. This wasn't just Aubrey's scheme. Linda was likely the mastermind all along. She was the one pulling strings, planting the seeds. Maybe it wasn't enough that she cleaned me out with alimony years ago. Maybe she needed one last round of punishment, and she thought using our daughter was the way in. Disgusting. To piss her off? I admit it. I pushed the knife in deeper. You know, I said, I've only written the inheritance to charity in my will. That means nothing's gone yet. The charity only gets what's left when I die. Until then, I can spend every last dime living a lavish life. I could hear her exhale sharply. There are a lot of chicks out there, I continued, who'd love a ride with a man like me. You think you can control me through guilt? You can't even annoy me anymore. That cracked her composure. You're sick, she snapped. I smiled, venom in my voice. Sure, maybe. Maybe only hot chicks can cure me. So screw you, and your narcissistic daughter. That Aubrey. That's not my daughter. I lost my daughter to you 12 years ago. Silence. I know those were harsh words. Cruel, even. And if I offended anyone with what I said, well, I only said it to piss her off. I needed her to feel even a fraction of what I'd been put through. I have no intention of being some sugar daddy. That's not who I am. But after all this, after the dust settled, I started thinking maybe it's time. Time to stop living like a man waiting for something, or someone, who's never coming back. Time to stop punishing myself for a life that didn't go as planned. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to seek out something meaningful again. To give love a second chance. 7 months later. It's strange how life has a way of flipping the script when you least expect it. After years of silence, regret, and grief, I found myself waking up one morning, smiling. And not because I had more money, or got revenge, or even made peace with the past, but because of her, Hannah. We met at a community book club of all places. She was sitting across from me, reading The Old Man and the Sea, sipping tea like she had all the time in the world. Graceful, calm, a little mysterious. When she spoke, her voice was warm but firm, the kind that made you want to listen. She was a widow, lost her husband 6 years ago. No kids, no baggage, just a woman with a quiet strength and the kind of kindness that doesn't feel performative. We started with coffee, then lunch, then slow walks by the park. The more I talked to her, the more I felt like myself again, not the bitter version I had become, but the man I used to be. Curious, gentle, hopeful. Do you always hold back this much? She asked me once over dinner. I chuckled. Only when I'm afraid I might like someone more than I planned to. She smiled and squeezed my hand. Then don't hold back. God, that felt good. No manipulation. No guilt trips. No hidden motives. It wasn't long before I started posting our moments online. Photos of us hiking, cooking together, even just sitting on the porch with coffee and the dog she insisted I adopt. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just wanted to share what joy looked like. The comments started rolling in from old friends and acquaintances. You look so happy, Tristan. She seems lovely. Finally, you deserve this. Love wins, even if it's late. But then came her. Aubrey. Out of nowhere, she commented under one of our posts. Funny how some people pretend to be the perfect dad now, when they weren't there when it mattered. Still, I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because people saw. And they responded. Are you serious? Weren't you the one who ghosted him for 12 years? Girl, please. He paid for your school and tried to reach out. Everyone saw it. Don't ruin your dad's happiness because you made poor choices. Let the man live. Another one. Go find your own sugar daddy, because that's what you are worth. Aubrey tried to clap back, but every response she posted got ratioed to hell. Eventually, she deleted the comment. But the damage was already done to her. Hannah saw it too. She placed her hand on mine that evening and asked, Are you okay? I nodded. Yeah, for the first time in years. I actually am. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Aubrey will come around one day. Maybe she won't. But I've stopped living for that maybe. Right now, I've got a woman who laughs at my bad jokes, holds my hand without asking why, and looks at me like I'm not broken. And me? I'm learning to love again. To laugh without guilt. To live without waiting for an apology that may never come. Hannah once whispered in my ear, You're not late to love, Tristan. You just took the scenic route. She's right. This is my happy ending. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.